an oil change on your Honda Goldwing, you want to make sure that you have the proper tools. A lot of bikers only have maybe one tool in their toolbox, but a good mechanic must always be prepared to improvise, and you must have an assortment of tools depending on the job that you are performing. So we're talking about the oil filter and struggling to get the oil filter off. So I'm going to grab, this is a Fram oil filter. I run the Fram oil filter in my Honda Goldwings. I also run the originals. Some of you may not like Fram, but that's a topic for another video. I'm just going to open up this Fram oil filter, which is, it looks pretty much like the original oil filter that comes off the Honda Goldwing. When you remove this oil filter, you want to make sure that you have the right oil filter removal tool. So with this Fram actually make a oil filler cup that's specific for their oil filters. So when it's time to take off this oil filter, when it's in a tight spot, because on the Honda Goldwing up underneath, it's kind of tight under there, so you don't have a lot of room to work. So you got to have the right tool. So if you're running a Fram like I'm using, you want to make sure that you get the oil filler cup, right? And it mounts right on the bottom. I can take my braking bar, mount it to the bottom, and then I can remove my Fram oil filter. And this technique works the same with the original oil filter. If you have the original Honda OEM filter, they also make one for the original Honda OEM filter. I will leave a link where you guys can pick up the tools that I'm using here in this video. So if you have the original Honda oil filter, which is smaller, it's not going to fit on the Fram. You know, you want to make sure that you get an oil filler cup or oil filter cup that's specific for your oil filter. You don't want to wait until it's time to do an oil change and scramble to pick up the tools you need. You need to get this stuff way in advance, so when it's time to change your oil, you're ready to go. So this particular filter cup will not fit on this oil filter. So you want to make sure that you get a specific one. This one is for the original Honda OEM. Okay. So I'm just going to set that to the side. Again, I'm just using this as an example. So let's say you're trying to take off your oil filter and your oil filter cup is not working. So let's say it's just not working. Maybe your oil filter is dented, or you can't get it in there for some reason. So you need to grab another tool. So tools that I like to use if I'm struggling. This is a 3-jaw adjustable oil filter wrench. And it basically, it opens up wide for a wider oil filter, but it closes down small for a smaller oil filter. So I can open this up, reach in, mount it to the bottom, and then I can take my braking bar, attach it to the bottom, and now it actually grabs that oil filter. So when I'm trying to take it loose, it grabs it and it takes it off. This is called a 3-jaw. If I need more leverage, I can take off that braking bar. I can move up to a 1/2 inch size. If I really need some leverage, I'm going to go with an adapter. And now I have plenty of leverage to get that oil filter off. If I need something a little bit shorter, I can still take my adapter, plug it on the bottom, go with a smaller ratchet, or I can extend this thing out. And I can extend it out and make it longer, or I can take it in and make it shorter. So a tool like this is valuable in the garage when you're trying to take off your oil filter. So that's a 3-jaw adjustable. I have that in the arsenal. If that doesn't work, I have a regular oil filter wrench that goes around the bottom, and I can take off the filter that way. That's another tool to have in your garage, is a good oil filter wrench. If that doesn't work, now this tool here is a 3-in-1. It's specific for the Honda original OEM filter, so it's not even going to fit on the Fram, okay? But this will fit on the original Honda OEM filter, and it also has a spot here to take off the oil drain plug. It's a 3-in-1. So you can take off the drain plugs here, and then you can reach in and take off the filter that way. Okay. I will include a link where you guys could pick this up. I actually picked this up on my first Honda Goldwing, and I've been using it ever since, and this thing worked great. I mean, it fits around that original OEM filter without a problem. But if you can't get that in there, what are you going to do? You're going to have to come. I have an oil filter pliers that'll reach around, and I can grab the oil filter that way. So it doesn't matter if it's an original or if it's a Fram or whatever you're using. Oil filter pliers. Okay. So you want to make sure you have that in your arsenal. What if that doesn't work? You got vice grips that are made for oil filter. You know, all I have to do is just adjust it down to the size I need, and I can lock this on there. Okay. So you can use the oil filter vice grips. So the point of this video is that when you're doing an oil filter change, whether it's an original or out the market, depending on whatever you're using, it doesn't matter. You want to make sure that you got different tools in your arsenal. I see a lot of bikers will struggle trying to get off their oil filter. They struggle to get off their oil filter because they only have one tool in the arsenal. Make sure that when you go to working on your bike, buy the tools that you need, get them in advance. So when it's time to work on your bike, you're ready to go. So I keep extra assortments of oil filter pliers, oil filter wrenches, okay, and the 3-way adjustable or the 3-jaw adjustable oil filter wrench. I mean, all of this is in my arsenal, and I even got another. Let's see if here I got another oil filter cup for oil filters. So it's a good idea to buy you an assortment of these things. You can buy them in a kit or you can buy them single, depending on how you want to do it. The takeaway from this video is that you want to make sure that you have an assortment of tools. A good mechanic has an assortment of tools, and they must be prepared to improvise. So you don't want to just have one tool. One tool may not always work. That's the thing about working on your motorcycle. Get you some tools. And that's what I do. I try to buy the tools that I need. So when it's time to perform the oil change, or depending on what I'm doing, I have an assortment of tools. So I have all these oil filter wrenches in the garage. I even have a couple more over in my toolbox. That the point is, it's always good to have an assortment of tools and buy the tools that you need. Just like, for example, if I was going to do an oil change, I got a package of crush washers. You know, a lot of times I'll reuse my crush washers, but I have extra crush washers in the garage just in case for some reason the crush washer needs to be replaced. You know, Honda recommends that you replace these things after every oil change. I don't generally do that, but I keep an assortment of crush washers here in the garage. I even have some for the older Goldwing. The older Goldwing uses a bigger, they actually use a bigger crush washer. So these are just a couple of the big ones for the older Goldwings. The newer Goldwings are smaller. So you want to have extra tools around the garage, so when you're working on your bike, you're ready to go. So I just want to put that out there for anybody that may be struggling to get off your oil filter. Sometimes you need some leverage. You may have to go to a longer braking bar. Sometimes you need a shorter braking bar. Sometimes you need an adjustable. So it just depends on the project you're working on. You want to make sure that you have the right tools. So I just want to put that out there. So if you guys have any questions, I will include links to all of my oil filter tools that I use to remove my oil filter. I'll leave that in the description of the video of all of these tools that I have in my arsenal, just in case I need to do an oil change. So you shouldn't struggle if you have the right tools. and that's coming straight from Biker Caliente. If you got any questions or comments, don't hesitate to put it in the comment section below. If you like this video, click the like button, and I'll see you a little bit later out here in the Caliente garage.